Hi everyone, welcome to Go Local Live at the Rhode Island State House. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us on this busy Thursday afternoon. As you can probably hear, College Crusade is in the background, a big rally day here, but we've got some guests from you that I'd like to introduce right now. We're going to kick off the 3 o'clock show with Ray Rickman, former state representative, former deputy secretary of state, now with Stages of Freedom.
Thank you, Kate. When I was a state rep, quite a while ago, we would have a bill and you read it and it was pretty clear and you knew what you were voting on. Then you'd have a bill, you read it, and you knew what you weren't voting on. So they're trying to sell the Providence water supply. And they have this bill permitting Narragansett to buy it. But the bill doesn't have the restrictions. It doesn't say what Narragansett could do with the Providence water supply in the future if they want to. There are not enough regulations on the issue of what are the rates going to be. Remember, 60% of Rhode Islanders get their water from Providence water supply. I think we ought to slow down. Slow down. And look at the 7 or 8 questions. I'm interested in if we're going to protect the land at Scituate, where the water comes from. That's not in the bill. Providence has been a great steward the entire time, expanded the land, never sold any plots on the edge to get a little money in years in which it might have needed it. They've actually run the Providence water supply very well. Very interesting that the city of Providence could do that. I am worried. God bless the child that has their own. You know that famous quote. It's in a Billie Holiday song. It is just so great that Providence has its own water supply. Don't want to sell it. And if we are going to sell it, I want to know who's going to own it 20 years from today, what they're supposed to do with it, and that I, as a Providence or Warwick or Scituate resident, not going to be ripped off, and it's not going to belong to a private owner who wants to milk me as I try to buy water. So I recommend that the legislature slow down, probably create a commission and study this and bring this bill back next year. I think the people of Providence, the owners, are entitled to public hearings and maybe even to a referendum. God bless the child that has their own. And if the child's going to sell their property, us, the citizens of Providence, we ought to know what we're going to get. Final comment. They're claiming that this water system is only worth $300, $400 million. It would cost $5 billion to build this system with its underground pipes, and it would just be unbelievable what it would cost. So if it would cost $5 billion to build one, why can't we get $1 billion for it? I think there ought to be some fiscal notes.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Go Local Live edition at the Rhode Island State House. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome my next guest. He came just over from RDW, Dante Bellini. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome, Kate.
As you've watched on Go Local Live, we've featured the RIDOT's Ripple Effect campaign. This is to raise awareness for impaired driving. We've had a number of individuals sharing their stories, trying to get Rhode Islanders more aware, again, about just how much impaired driving affects not just the victims and their families, but the community at large. Dante's the brainchild behind this campaign.
I don't know about that.
And you can't go anywhere without seeing it online, without hearing it on the radio, without seeing it on TV. As this campaign is now kind of in its mid-stretch, what's the reaction then that you hear from folks when they say, I've heard those spots? What are you hearing?
Well, the greatest affirmation has been people saying that they've been touched by it. They watched it with their kids, or they had a family discussion about it. So that really makes us feel good. But I should point out that the real inspiration, the real cheerleader for this was Director Peter Alviti from Rhode Island Department of Transportation. And unlike DOTs of the past, there was a real empathy towards trying to truly change behavior and doing it from an emotional standpoint versus, you know, the fixing of the roads and the bridges, which are all important. But this is a really different way of trying to affect behavior change.
Well, we've featured a number of folks on Go Local. Again, we're going to be featuring some more as well. Do you think it's that cumulative effect of hearing from the families, from the victims, from the health officials? Is it that total overall impact that really that makes it the campaign that it is?
Well, there's a commonality. And whether we spoke to parents who lost a child or the first responders or the docs, clergy, it didn't matter. Offenders, victims, the ultimate result is that their lives have been irreparably harmed and changed. So this is an insight into that. And the ripple effect is, what do people do with that pain and anguish? And is there a force for good within that? And hopefully we've been trying to, you know, mine that gem.
And there have been a couple of common themes that we've talked about throughout this campaign so far. It's not just taking into account your own actions, but also being aware of people around you. If you see someone who's impaired, you know, being that, don't be the bystander.
Right. Well, there's an important lesson to be learned, and that is that there's a moment of decision. So you either make a good decision or a bad decision. And we've been trying to focus on the notion that if people have seen this or seen stuff like this, that maybe at that moment of decision or indecision, they'll think about consequences. It's an uphill battle, but it's a battle that's worth waging.
Well, I just wanted to bring you on again, how this all came together. How many stakeholders? You talk about Alviti, you know, you bring in sort of the branding and PR brainchild. There were a lot of people around the table to make this happen.
Yeah, we purposely wanted to involve many, many people. So we've had people from the health department, from DOT, from law enforcement, people from all walks of life. You know, this is not black, white, red, orange, you know, thing. It is about people who make bad decisions. And to the credit of Director Alviti and others, this is something that is that hasn't been done across the country, and we're hoping that it makes a difference. So far this year, driving deaths are down, drunk driving deaths are down, but you know, there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, as you continue to put out the spots, we continue to feature them, talk with folks on Go Local. Again, you can see links beneath this when we show this video afterwards, but it really is, we just hope that Rhode Islanders really take this to heart.
Yeah, and one last thing, we're about to break new spots with the DeCubulus family and Becky Bowman White, and I believe you interviewed Becky. It is really interesting to see an event, a crash that occurred nearly 20 years ago, and the commonality between that and a crash that occurred a couple of months ago. So I hope people watch it.
Okay, continue to keep an eye out for the ripple effects. Take the message to heart. Again, the RIDOT and RDW, Dante Bellini, came together to put forward this very powerful public service message, so please be sure to watch it. Dante, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kate.
I appreciate it. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local Live at the Rhode Island State House. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. I'm happy to welcome my next guest in. We've had him before, Representative Anthony Giarrusso.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Wanted you to tell folks about legislation introduced just this week you're putting forth pertaining to how crimes pertaining to bombs are treated. And this is something I'm sure you've thought about before, but something specifically that happened here in Rhode Island.
It's really strange, Kate, how sometimes you find that when you don't really know that there's loopholes somewhere until you start digging. And when I only learned the other night on the TV, I was watching the nightly news, and they said that they were going to make an arrest, but they couldn't because technically it's not against the law to possess these things in Rhode Island. And so the more we dug, the more we found out, oh my God, how can that possibly be? And it all came to a technicality that in 2010, when recreational fireworks were legalized, they struck out a huge paragraph that talked about bombs and combustibles and things just like that. And I'm sure it was an unintended consequence, but nonetheless, it needs to be addressed. So I did have a bill drafted, and it'll mirror Massachusetts bill, where something that they did after the Boston Marathon bombing. So we'll have all those protections in.
Because, I mean, as you mentioned, there was the incident here where all of the makings for bomb materials were there. And it's just by the grace of God that it was stopped. But it just seems like after 2013, this should be something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tough issue because everything bought separately is all legal. You know, you can't outlaw pressure cookers or pipes or fertilizer, but you still have to have a mechanism to see the cocktail that those things can combine, what it will do if they're all combined.
So what's the reaction been since you put this out there? What have you heard from constituents? What have you heard from Rhode Islanders?
First of all, everybody that I've heard from was just as shocked as I was that currently there's nothing in statute that prohibits that. But everyone is supportive, and I can't imagine why this thing wouldn't be the next law passed in Rhode Island.
Well, we'll provide a link to the bill language. I just wanted you to have you come on here and tell folks a little bit more about why you put it forth. We'll continue to follow it moving forward. Anything else you want to share with viewers while we have you here?
I think it's just, as I said before, it happened a few years ago where we had a bus monitor in my town where they found that he was possessing child pornography. And then they found that we checked the statute, and everybody who's employed by a school is subjected to national background checks. And yet third-party vendors, bus drivers, monitors, anybody who's not a direct employee only had to do a statewide check. So we saw that and we fixed it. So these things do happen.
Seeing where the loopholes are, seeing what needs to be fixed. I appreciate your taking the time to come tell viewers about this piece of legislation. Representative Giarrusso, thank you so much today.
Thank you. So nice to be with you.
I appreciate it. I'll let you go off.
Thank you.
And we'll still be here at the Rhode Island State House moving forward. There's a press conference taking place at 4. We'll be covering that as well. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel.